Hi, it's Dr. Turan, and you're listening to The Pop. The Pursuit of Peace podcast is brought to you by SP Consulting Group, where the mission is bringing your vision to life. Welcome back. You're here with Dr. Turan. All right, so let's just jump right into it. We're talking about tip number 2 as we go along with Mental Health America's tips to thrive in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month. And the tip to thrive number 2 is finding the positive after loss. Now, I wonder what that means actually, as far as loss can be defined in different ways, but there are truly very few situations in life that will cause someone to become speechless. And I'd like to say that loss is one of those things. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people, including myself, have a hard time talking about loss. Everyone at some point or another ends up losing someone or something. And despite us knowing it's bound to happen at some point, we still have a hard time dealing with it, right? I really believe it goes back to, at least for me, a spiritual state of mind where death was never really intended to be a part of the picture, right? Adam and Eve in the garden, they sinned, then death became a reality, right? So from that perspective, there is truly something that pops into my mind, even though before I feel like everybody else. When it comes down to talking about death and loss, I always immediately go to the death of someone that I love, someone that I knew, and not really taking into account that there are many other things that someone can lose. Now, granted, I have lost people that were very close to me, and I even spoke of one major recent loss of a good friend of mine, lost her to suicide. But I think about the loss that we have in regards to this new, and I'm putting up air quotes, new normal. Everybody's talking about this new normal, and that's all you hear these days. I mean, I even am guilty of talking about a new normal and what's going to happen next past, this pandemic. Like, what are we going to do moving forward? While there are plenty of exciting things that are going on moving forward, and some people are taking this time to, build and grow and just develop themselves, there are a lot of things that we have lost. Now, just go with me for a second down this road where prior to COVID-19, we would simply do whatever we wanted to do, whenever we wanted to do it, right? If someone was naturally an introvert, they stayed in the house or stuck to their small knit group of friends, or simply did whatever it is that they needed from one moment to another. So in order to feel secure in their own space, right? I can speak directly from this because I really feel that if it wasn't for my job, I truly be 100% a hermit. Like, that is no lie. I mean, otherwise I get my energy from going to a place of quiet and calm. And sometimes even if it's staring at a ceiling or going into prayer or simply just listening to music that calms me, I'm absolutely fine. And as I even think of my teenage years, some of the memories that do pop up in my head was spending a lot of time reading. It was something that allowed me to escape into these different, psychological thrillers, murder mysteries, or, whatever other genre I enjoyed at that particular moment without truly having to deal with too much of an energy waste. And I think that's really how I used to think of it, as far as doing too much, being around too many people was just a waste of energy that I can put into something else. I don't know. Call me crazy. But The reality is, for those of you who would prefer to be out of the house, let me back up. For those that prefer to be in the house, we still had a freedom, right? We still had a freedom to go out when we wanted to, but we can't do that now. And what I can't imagine are those that are more sociable, your extroverts, if we were to put a label on it, who simply get a lot of energy by being around other people. It's refreshing, being cooped up in the house, having restrictions for where you can go, how long, making sure that you wear a mask, everything else that comes along with what is now our new normal, right? Is it really what we used to do? No, like we didn't have to wear a mask. We didn't have to make sure that we stepped away 6 feet from one another. We didn't have to do that. There were a lot of freedoms that we had before this pandemic, and the loss of it, we didn't even realize was possible. Regardless of how many different movies have been out there about the end of times or the pandemic, the contagion, so to speak. But we talk about even different cultural biases and prejudice and discrimination that may go on in between religion, between race, ethnicities, creeds, colors, whatever it may be. But guess what? We just try to stay away from everybody nowadays, right? We truly spend a lot of time, and let me say it again, I spend a lot of time making sure that I am protected, that my son is protected, that there are no possibilities of us getting infected with COVID-19. But now there is this automatic tension that comes over me when I see someone near me or my son. He literally will run around, whether it's the post office, the grocery store, wherever it is that we needed to go in that moment, he's running around. So my eyes are darting everywhere, but at the same time, trying not to make people feel uncomfortable because I am aware of how uncomfortable this can make people be, but it didn't used to be that way, right? But what we do now is new. Like I said, when we first started out, a lot of people refer to loss as it relates to people, loved ones, neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. Either way, we look at loss from the standpoint of a person, and a human being. But there's truly something to say for when your freedoms have been lost. Now, I can go down the road of talking about loss of freedom as it pertains to, being African American, being a woman, and all the things that, have come up in that regard. Right now we're in a state of pause because of the African American male that was just shot down by jogging. See, that's even a whole another podcast, right? But I digress. Let's talk about loss from the standpoint of what we have lost during this pandemic and how we can go into a place of resiliency, and even, as I like to consider it, post-traumatic growth. But let's talk about post-traumatic growth. And some of you may even be saying, okay, Dr. Turan, is this truly that serious? Yes, it is. You guys have heard our Surgeon General talk about how he has compared this situation to 9/11 event, Pearl Harbor events. We are going through something very traumatic. We are in a nationwide, worldwide pandemic. It is trauma. And it's traumatic because it was as if overnight, all of a sudden, everything changed. And as I have spoken to some people that I do coaching with or provide mental health counseling to, they say the same thing. What in the world is going on? I even asked myself, what in the world is going on with my memory? I don't know how many times I've lost my cell phone. I don't know how many times I thought it was one day versus another. And mind you, I'm on the computer, I'm on social media, I am working, I am reaching out to people, I am seeing the calendar over and over and over again, and it's shot. I am functioning during a crisis. And while there may be different perspectives for those that go into work versus those that are working from home, like myself, ultimately the loss is shared. As a society, we have lost huge comforts that we once took for granted. The comfort of being able to go outside, talk to someone, say hello to them, depending on which state you're in or city you're in, it may be to give the nod, because not everybody, talks. But the option to pass by someone, the option on the street with your guard down, without becoming hypervigilant, to simply say hello. I think now what I've noticed is everyone is giving the nod to show their courtesy and their goodwill. I'm not going to come too close. I got you. I see you. Head nod. According to Mental Health America, and this particular tip of knowing how to find the positive after loss, and I'd like to throw in there finding the positive throughout a period of grief and loss, let's go down with their micro tips in this tip to thrive. And it's 7 of them. So number 1 is try to see your experience as a strength. Number 2, learn from others. Number 3, look for an opportunity amidst adversity. Number 4, remember the good times. Number 5, do what makes you happy. Number 6, find ways to honor your loss. And 7, don't be afraid to get help. And as you know, I'm really big on number 7. Don't be afraid to get help. If you don't remember anything else, get help. And that will then allow you to work through this process, right? Especially if you're seeking someone with a professional background, clinical intervention, get help. Now, if we were to apply all 7 of these to our loss, what we are familiar with, as far as loss in community, from the perspective of engaging one another face to face, I do find that there's some hope. I always try to find a silver lining, right? And the reason why I say I'm hopeful and to find hope is because when you are trying to see your experience as a strength, you are looking for that silver lining, that golden nugget that you can then carry on to the aftermath, after you have healed, after you have grown from that loss, that would actually give you a skill that will help you deal with other situations in the future, whether it's similar or whether it's close to being as traumatic. You will then have those skills. You have that memory that is now being stamped into your mind of how to deal. And then when we're talking about learning from others in the situation, we're not alone. Everyone in the world is being impacted by this pandemic in one way or another. And if you're not ready to face some of the things that have been bothering you during this time, you can literally, if you want, spend some time looking at shared stories on social media, through the news, how people have gone through, how they've made it through. I do appreciate some of the news outlets that have been making a point to also share successes or sharing stories about when people have pushed beyond the detrimental impacts physically of COVID. They've made it. They have survived it. And I recently put together, for example, because that's going to be another option, go on to online platforms where people are gathered together to talk about their shared experiences. I recently put together a support group for mental health professionals because we are sitting here talking about all that is being done, all that is being experienced by medical professionals as frontline workers, but mental health therapists are also on the front line. Not only are they dealing with increased stress with patients, but we're also dealing with the support that we may want to provide to our fellow colleagues, right? And I want to be sure that this is mentioned, but that we need to learn from one another. And if you guys are wondering and want to join, you can find me on Facebook, and It's called the Healer's Pop. And just like we are pursuing peace, and this is the Pursuit of Peace podcast, I called it the Healer's Pop, the healer's opportunity to pursue peace as well, just like we do here for the general population that is on this journey with us. And when it comes down to it, we are in an especially critical time with our therapist. So if you are interested, and I'm just going to leave it there. If you're interested, feel free. It is free to join for now. Later on, we're going to close it, and it is very private because of the topics that we will be discussing. But for now, until the end of May, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month, all therapists are free to join. So you just can find it. It's public. So either way, it's called the Healer's Pop, and it's on Facebook. Okay. But either way, I digress again. I want to recommend, moving forward, that we look for opportunities in the midst of adversities, right? So in the midst of adversity, what we say and when we are going through things, again, this is something that we want to look at, okay? I may feel guilty about a situation. I may feel selfish at first, but after a tragedy, we are needing to return to a new normal. And that's where I support this phrase, coming to a new normal. Things will never be the same. But what do we do? What do we take from the situation once we've made it through to apply to survival later on? And, our new normal doesn't allow us contact yet. And then we want to look at, in the midst of that, ways that we can spend our time otherwise. And you probably wasted if you're just busying yourself with something else. So basically, some people, and me as an example, I've taken a chunk of my time to say, how can I help people from this place, like where I am right now today? And I have shared with you guys that I do have sickle cell. So when it's all said and done, no, I'm not going to put myself at risk. But there is a lot that I can do online, for instance. So consider what you can do, because then that's stepping outside of the turmoil that you may be going through with your loss, the frustrations, the anxieties, the stress, the depression, but you're finding an opportunity and being creative and finding new ways to be engaged with people. Now, think about the good times. That's another one of the micro tips, as I call it. And I know that when people pass away, a lot of people recommend that you consider, thinking of the good memories you had with them, because it's not something that anyone can take from you, right? Now, consider the good times that we had when we didn't have to stay inside. Now, think about those times, even that we've been able to go on trips, to travel the world. Those of us that have that ability to do so. Times when we were able to visit with family, if we have families that we can visit. Whenever we wanted to do so, we did, right? Now think about the times that were spent. Watch how you feel just by thinking of those times, laughing at those jokes, laughing how crazy so-and-so was when they said this, that, and the other, So see how that feels by thinking of that. And another one is do what makes you happy. And I mean, even though you may not ever be able to go out in the way that you once did, or maybe modified to interact in the way that you once did. But one thing that is for sure is that you can take care of yourself. You can pamper yourself. Pampering yourself doesn't mean, I require a spa to do that. It can just be, let me, cut my nails. Let me order some of these little face masks from somewhere and put it on, or let me soak my feet. I don't ever soak my feet. That is comforting in and of itself, especially if you have Epsom salt. That helps bring out toxins, right? Now, there are different ways that you can take care of yourself and ways that you can pamper yourself. But ultimately, even if it's just as simple as, let me get a book and sit over here and rest. How many people have felt that they've never had enough time to rest? And again, there may be a difference in perspective when we talk about people that are working outside the home versus those that are working inside the home. But there are ways that you can honor you can honor the loss that is happening. And I mean, some people may do particular activities to say their farewells and to honor people that they've been missed. But when, for example, you are finding the positive in the loss of going out to dinner or throwing dinner parties, maybe it's the money that you're saving, and you can still interact with people by using, different platforms like Zoom or Google Duo or WhatsApp, Marco Polo, ways that you can still interact and still make it fun, right? So think of these interactive, fun, and virtual platforms where you can get together and talk with your loved ones. And this is, again, a way that you can honor what you've lost in the social interaction, but do it in a fun way. And lastly, I don't want people to be afraid to get help. Like I said, that is my biggest pitch for everyone. Get the help. It is perfectly normal to get help. I still get help, whether it's from mentors, whether it's from an actual mental health therapist or a spiritual leader, family that I feel can be objective and insightful. I still get help. And I mean, you have to deal with mess. It's definitely nothing to be subconscious about. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you don't remember anything that I say, or if you don't even agree with anything that I've said, the biggest takeaway should be at this time, if no other time, when you realize that you can't do it alone, seek help. I can provide help if you need it. You can just reach out to me if you need to. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are talking about how you can make sure you find positive after and in the midst of loss. There's so much more that I could say in regards to loss, but I think I will make that maybe even a part 2 to this particular episode in regards to dealing with loss, because there's a lot of people that unfortunately are dealing with the loss of loved ones, friends, significant others, because of complications from COVID-19, this deadly virus, this major crisis that has been brought on us. So join me again. I mean, I will be back. I will be continuing to come back so that you will be able to make sure that you get the information that you need as you pursue peace. I hope you do come back. Make sure that you share, subscribe so that you can get all the newest podcasts. I usually post every Friday by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There should be a new episode each week, okay? And it's very important that you tune in, especially because of the information that I have to share in regards to making sure that you get to a place of balance, okay? So I'm trying to look for the positive in the midst of this loss. So come back, all right? Let's talk more. I'm Dr. Turan, and I really, really appreciate you joining me. Take care, and see you next Friday.